Jim and Will. What have they been watching lately? They're husky, hairy, huggable homos. Movie Bears Podcast.
Hello all and welcome to the Movie Bears Podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by some of my favorite husky, hairy, huggable homos to review films either current or classic. And on this week's episode, we're bringing you something a little classic, but mostly current. That is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, the newest Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles take on the property. We're going to chat a little bit about how this maybe holds up against some of the turtle related things that have come before, but also doesn't stand alone as its own thing. Lots of great discussion. Can't wait to get into it. But before we do, let me introduce you to my co-host. Jim Pugliafico is with us on the show this week. Hey, babe, how's it going?
Hello, I'm here as Donatello this week. I'm great. I'm looking forward to talking about this movie, believe it or not. Never thought I'd say I'm pleasantly anxious to talk about a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, but we'll talk more about that too.
Well, there you go. Well, glad to have you here. Will Lindis is also here. How are you, Will?
Whoa! Cowabunga party, dudes! I'm here to talk about some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, eat some pizza, and shred some gnar. I don't know. It's at a certain point, like, the surfer bro talk goes right out the window for me, but I'm really excited to be here. This is going to be a fun one. I know, these types of big studio properties that are based off of nostalgic properties always have like a lot of different angles to address them from. Plus, I'm here talking to the two of you. I feel like the three of us were all sitting in the movie sewers one day until we got drenched in the ooze of podcastdom and became the fearsome fighting trio that we are today.
That's right.
Nice. All right. Excellent. Well, glad you fellas are excited to chat about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. As we always do on this show, we're going to talk about the film spoiler free for about the first 10, 15 minutes, and then we will open things up wide to spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, you're kind of on the fence, maybe you want to hear some of our thoughts, A, we're very honored that you want to hear what we have to say. And B, we're happy to share those with you. But C, as always, make your own opinions when it comes to film. It is super subjective. Just because we like or dislike something doesn't mean you'll like or dislike it. So check it out, maybe form your own opinion, see what you think. But fellas, are you ready to dive into this one?
Yeah, let's give them a show.
Let's go.
All right, awesome. Then all of that said, here we go. Our discussion of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. All right, Will, do us a favor. Set this one up for us and tell us a little bit about your initial thoughts. Did this one trip your trigger or maybe send you screaming out of the movie theater? Where did you come down?
Yeah, so Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. So this one is So first of all, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has been around since the Eastman and Laird comics, then to the popular cartoon series of the late 80s, early 90s, and several different film and animated reboots and restarts and adaptations and comic books and action figures. It's one of those things. Everyone knows what a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle is. One of the nice things about this particular film is that it is standalone in that you don't have to know who these characters are, know who this, what the series is before going into it. This is a good jumping in point. If you don't know where to get in or, am I going to be drowned in lore? No, you can jump right in here. Not to say that this film doesn't have a lot of references, a lot of things that you can't enjoy if you understand them, but they're not a crucial part of it. The tagline here is the film follows the Turtle Brothers, the 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, as they work to earn the love of New York City while facing down an army of mutants. The other thing of note about this film is it has a very unique animation style that almost feels very like water painted or like painter, like brush strokey at times. The lines aren't necessarily like kind of that normal bubbly 3D-ish look that you see in kind of typical Pixar Disney films. Nor is it like the kind of the flat cell shaded of like the classic like cartoons that we see. This is its own thing, and for what it's worth, I thought the animation style was absolutely brilliant. This movie looks great, feels great, is a lot of fun. I think we're seeing this sort of like reinvigoration of animation as a film genre, sort of since Into the Spider-Verse, where between that, Mitchell's versus the Machines, Across the Spider-Verse here, we're starting to see films play around with different styles, which you can always find in sort of like art house animation, but didn't always make it into like the big studio animations that that's going across every studio. But we're starting to see that now, and I love it. It means that animated films all look different from one another, and I want more of that. The characters are fun. They feel like they don't just feel like the original characters, the original characterizations, because if you tried to make a 2023 teenager who's like a surfer dude or like, who act exactly the way the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles of our youth did, it wouldn't feel legitimate. That's not the way that, teens talk nowadays. These kids feel like they are for better or worse, of the TikTok generation, the slang they use, the way that they interact with pop culture, the way they interact with one another, the way they interact with the world feels very lived in. Story is fun. This big action, but more than anything, this is, about four characters trying to fit in. There is like an A24 like coming of age element to it in places that I think is kind of neat. This could have been an absolute shit show. The Michael Bay one, I fucking hated, and that was a shit show. There's been a lot of adaptations that I've not enjoyed, but I think this one's the goods. I strongly recommend this one. If you're going to make a new animated adaptation of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in 2023, this is what I think it should look like.
All right. Well, I'm letting those words sink in. I'm a little surprised, Will, after the Michael Bay Ninja Turtles, to hear you say these things, and I can't wait to get into it further with you. But before we do that, let's head on over to Jim and hear if this movie hit the same way, Jim, or did it strike you differently?
Yeah. Here I am, not growing up on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, certainly knowing that they were a thing. But I wasn't really into it growing up, I think, because I was already pretty much grown up as these things really emerged in the late 80s, early 90s with all those movies. And then, at different points kind of getting pulled in to these movies. Some of them I think we may have even talked about on this show before. I'm not sure. We may have even reviewed one on here. I'm not exactly sure. Not in the 90s, but I don't know when the last one was, but
the Michael Bay one a few years ago.
The Michael Bay one, I'm sure we talked about that on the show. But,
we did.
But getting pulled into the franchise at these kind of really questionable, like jumping in points, really kind of put in my mind, like, oh shit, here we go again. Another not so stellar entry into a franchise that I don't really care that much about. But you know what? I came out of this really enjoying this film. Like, I think the animation style, as you said, Will, was refreshing, especially, even on the tails of, the Into the Spider-Verse kind of styles that we got, all those different styles. This still was a freshening up of the look of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I thought it was really great. It set itself apart from the stuff like Into the Spider-Verse, and certainly different from the other Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies, whether they were live action or whatnot. So yeah, visually, I thought it looked very interesting from the get-go, and I love that. The voice acting was really good. We talk about Ayo Edebiri. This actor is blowing up everywhere, from her, her thing in the Bear, the TV show that's like taking everybody by storm right now. She plays Sydney in The Bear, one of the main characters, and does great there. She was even in another movie which we didn't care for, called Theater Camp. I think she was in Theater Camp as well. So she's one of the, huh?
Oh,
She was. Yep.
Yeah, she's in theater camp, which maybe was done way before the bear and all that stuff. Was my guess, but I did not. Yeah. So anyway, but she's great here, as are all the actors who lend their voices here. Some of them but you know a lot. Rose Byrne, John Cena, of course Seth Rogen, Maya Rudolph is in this. Didn't know Jackie Chan was in here. Um, I listened to the voice of the character Splinter, and I'm like, who is that? I'm trying to put that, but like it's Jackie Chan, and he's somebody that like maybe I haven't heard enough of. I don't know to be able to put it, but yeah, I liked it. I loved the message of that longing for acceptance, which drives both the turtles and the villain in this film, but it drives them in different ways. I love that kind of that mirrored motivations, right, between the turtle good guys and the bad guys in this film, all centered around acceptance. They didn't try to be too crazy, as you said, Will, with the nostalgia Easter eggy kind of stuff. Although I'm sure there's a lot of it in here for fans to grasp onto, but it didn't feel to me like they were just like a constant barrage of like wink wink. Oh, do you remember this? Wink. Oh, I said this because. I thought this was really a really good fresh take on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I'm actually looking forward to maybe another movie down the road, with this style or, these actors and certainly these characters. So, yeah, this is a definite, go out and see it. It's one of the better summer movies that has come along in the last month or so.
Cool.
All right. Well, that's high praise from Jim as well, especially for a property that you haven't traditionally been a fan of. But thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. I guess for me, this movie was decent. It was okay. I don't think that it was like super amazing or anything like that, but it was certainly better than the Michael Bay films. I'll give it that. The art style is super weird and trippy for me. I'm really not into it. Xander in the chat. Hey Xander, by the way. Xander says reminds me of the PJ's claymation show from the creators of Neverhood. Yep, can totally see that. I don't know, just not my jam, but I definitely liked the characterization of the turtles in this one. I really like that they sort of go full on like geek mode with Donatello. You've got some of the normal turtle things, right? Like Mikey is still the party dude. Leonardo is still the brooding leader. Raphael's still the smart alecky, loner. Like I feel like they've got the core DNA of the turtles. Like if they sent a DNA sample of this movie to 23andMe, it would come back like 95% Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So we're good there. I do think it made some really weird choices with who it chose for the villain of this film and other villains and how villains collided with heroes and things that happened that we can't talk about yet. We'll get to that in spoilers. I'm really curious where this is going to go from here, but I appreciated that it tried to be its own thing, do its own thing. I know we hate on the Disney remakes a lot on this show. Well, you guys hate on them a lot. I maybe am a little more favorable, but I think, anytime you can reintroduce a beloved property for a new generation of people and provide a good onboarding point for them and give them their version of it, that's mostly a good thing. Thundercats Go, not so much. But like the Netflix He-Man series, for instance, wild departure from the original, but like a whole new generation of kids now have their He-Man, and they love it just as much as probably kids who now this is their Ninja Turtles. So even though this version of the Ninja Turtles isn't 100% my jam, I did have a good time with it. I did rate it 3.5 stars. So that's certainly better than the 1-star movie I saw that we won't talk about right now. But I definitely appreciate some of the things that this movie tried to do with these characters. Not a fan of what they did to Splinter at all. I know what they were going for. It just didn't really work for me. But I mean, by and large, the turtles themselves are what we're tuning in for, and I think they were pretty good. They were pretty decent. So I would definitely recommend this one, especially right now. We're starting to fall into that slump of not a lot of great things to see in theaters. If you've already seen, Barbie and Oppenheimer, the Meg 2 is out if you're looking for something blockbustery, but I don't know. I think it'd be hard to go wrong with this one if you like animation and mutants. So there you go. It's a recommend.
Methinks you accidentally reviewed a film and then referenced it a sentence later. If I'm putting if I'm connecting the dots on those, but I guess we'll find out, right?
He might have. Yeah, we won't find out
well-
this week, but maybe next week.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But I mean, I think you mentioned something really, really well here, and about what makes this work so well for me, because this is, whenever I think of something, it's like when I'm reintroducing popular media for a new generation, my thought process is always like, do it as many times as you want, but just what's the angle? What's the thing that you're introducing new? What's the thing that's like the spark, which can be any number of things. We just reviewed the Barbie movie and there was spark to it. Some of the adaptations that you had mentioned before haven't really had that for me, including like the Michael Bay ones. But I definitely feel what they wanted to tell with this story and what their point of view was and what their perspective was, which elements they wanted to adhere to, which elements wanted to make it feel like, hey, remember those cool toys, and which elements made it was like, hey, let's do something new with these. That's what I want out of any type of adaptation. So this movie really, at least from that front, gave me that perfect little blend of old and new.
So where's your jumping in point to you guys? Since my jumping in point was probably in one of the crappier movies that had, Michael Bay maybe or something. For each of you guys, where was your jumping in point for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when, early on in your life?
My jumping on point was in 1988 when my family was on the way back from Germany, where we had been living for 4 years. Somebody on an airplane saw that I was a bored little kid and gave me a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles toy to play with. It was their son's toy. The son had multiple toys. Anyway, I ended up playing with the kid who was like right across the row. And I didn't know who the fuck Leonardo was or what he was all about. I just knew that he was a turtle with swords and I liked the color blue. But when we got back stateside, I had asked my mom for one of those toys and she didn't know anything about it. So started asking around at the toy store and the guy was like, oh yeah, man, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like it's this whole thing. And then I ended up watching the cartoon and then in the 90s, the animated movies or the live action movies. And then it just, kind of went on from there. So I've probably been a fan since I was like 7 years old.
So toys.
Will?
Yeah, same. So it would have been, I had to look up what year like it started, but I was watching in 87, which is when like the show kicked off. I remember I was in sort of that kindergarten, first grade-ish, and I remember watching the cartoon, absolutely loving it. I had like a little stuffed Donatello that I remember getting like when I was picked up from school one day. There's a little stuffed Donatello sitting, and it's like, oh, this is for you. It's like I still remember that, and again, I was a little bitty. I remember then from there the turtle. Like, because you're not really tied into like pop culture as a thing when you're like 5 or 6 years old. You just watch what's on and you like what you like and you talk to your friends about what you like. And of course, Ninja Turtles, He-Man, Transformers, G.I. Joe was all kind of part of that. But I do remember like the Ninja Turtles then becoming this like thing, this big thing, because I remember I was also starting to get into comic books around that time, and I didn't really know what I was doing with comic books. But I went to the toy store, and they had a bunch of the Eastman and Laird comics, like after the first round, which were, I guess, more in black and white. But then they started sort of introducing more characters and wilder things and space adventures and stuff like that. So I was reading these comic books while watching this cartoon, then going to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles music tour. I legit went to that, like the coming out of their shells rock tour. At I remember we bought tickets to it, drove down to the Frank Irwin.
You were really into it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Turtles was my jam. You know, like more so than a lot of those different properties. Like I remember really being into Ninja Turtles. And I think it was because compared to a lot of the other ones, like G.I. Joe had a broad variety of like dudes with guns, which I was into as a kid. He-Man had a lot of like, you know, buff dudes with swords, which I was into, but there was something about specifically Ninja Turtles that clicked for me. You know, they're cool looking, weird little monster guys who are fighting other cool little weird looking monster guys. They're quipping. Each one does have a unique personality, even if they're all animated the same and just have different colors in the original cartoon. You can still tell them apart because of their voice acting. I don't know. It was just everything hit just right for Ninja Turtles. Now, I can't say that I'm like a long-term stan or anything like that. There's a certain point where like I didn't stick with Ninja Turtles. I haven't followed several of the iterations that have happened in between. I went to see the Michael Bay ones sort of on damn near a gunpoint. Like those were not my jam. But yeah, and I see here Dr. Matt Zappa's comment here. I had the Coming Out of Our Shells tape and VHS, don't judge. Yeah, so before the show, Jim and I had a moment to connect, and I sent him a YouTube rip of that VHS clip for him to watch in his free time. I'm sure he's going to sit down for the entire hour and 45 minutes and watch that later. But yeah, I had that VHS tape, and I'd watch it, and I had the little cassette, and I would listen to them singing, you know, like walk straight, no need to mutate. I remember all that shit. So that was my jumping in point, was just like all of the like the weird like cultural phenomenon of Ninja Turtles in that kind of 88 to 91 period, I would say.
Is that a right-wing religious message, that walk straight, no need to mutate thing?
You know what's so funny is I think back on that and I'm like, I know it. I think it was about like not doing drugs, but I don't know. And I never really studied it. It was just
didn't
like,
work for you anyway.
Oh yeah, Raphael's just rapping, so why not?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, to bring things back to this movie and this version of the Turtles, there's obviously a lot of things that have led up, Will, for you and I think a lot of folks in our age group, you know, towards accessing this property and maybe coming in with certain expectations. Steve Sosa in the chat has a fun comment. He says, this movie actually reminded me, it seemed like it was just us kids playing with all the toys, not just the main characters, but all the toys, and someone made a movie about it. And it's really interesting because this movie pulls some big deep cuts in terms of some of the characters from that varied turtle history that we've been talking about. I don't know about you all, but I'm excited to get into spoilers so we can start breaking all of this down. How do you feel? Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do that.
Cowabunga.
All right. Spoilers for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem are officially happening. If you haven't seen the movie yet, I'll slow down my rate of speech to give you time to hit the eject button. Come on back at the end for plugs if you like. But we are going to go ahead and open things up to spoilers. You can tell because if you're watching live, there is a green ticker, green for the Ninja Turtles at the bottom, letting you know spoilers totally happening. Where do y'all want to start with this one?
Well, I'll start by saying I was pleasantly surprised to see a really strong homage, I guess you could call it, or a nod to some of the big kaiju movies, specifically Godzilla. I think they might have even mentioned it in this movie. I don't remember exactly the lines of dialogue, but you know, at one point in the movie, the big bad villain gets really big and really bad, and he's basically like a mutant version of Godzilla, you know, kind of rampaging through the city, and that was really cool to see. I like the way they you know, portrayed that character, and The way it was represented on the screen, it was really cool. So yeah, that was a kind of a little bonus for me.
Yeah, I think that kaiju element makes it to where, this film is good portions of it are trying to kind of figure out who the antagonist is, because in some cases, of course, there is obviously the main villain and what they're going for,
Yeah.
but that's not the main conflict that the characters are really facing. The characters are really facing we want to be accepted at any cost, but can we be accepted by these humans? Well, no, they're going to fear us. So instead, maybe we do some morally questionable things to be accepted by a group that will more likely. So you've got that plot going through.
Stop spoiling X-Men for us, will you?
Yeah, a world that hates and fears them.
Mutants.
But once they got to like the sort of like the big monster mutant at the end, and they're doing sort of the fight there, and you get kind of the New Yorkers help, and just all of that stuff. There's just a lot of fun elements, and I think that's one of the things that's so nice about animation versus like real life CGI type stuff, is that you can do some wacky shit. Like, there's a moment, we're in spoilers, where they've got this thing, like one shot of this will demutinize someone. And so they shoot it at one of these like horses that's on his feet, and it's like this big moment, and then just that one horse turns normal, and he's like, oh, I can live without that. It's a funny little moment. And it's like, well, that makes sense. And it then plot wise, it raises the stakes. Now they have to go to, okay, I can't just take an easy shot. We've got to do this harder thing, which is why we're going to have to team up with everyone to get over there. So, story serves function serves story very well there. So I thought the kaiju part worked better than a lot of like kaiju versions in this type of movie,
Yeah. We saw another one this week that was, yeah. Anyway, I'll just leave it at that.
I cannot wait until next week.
Brad, you were saying there was something about the Splinter character. Maybe you can expand on that a little bit, because I only know a very little about the Splinter character, and I know obviously he's like the guru-ish mentor and kind of father figure for the Turtles, right? At least in this movie.
Yes.
So maybe you can explain how this version of Splinter didn't really hit for you.
Sure. So in my Ninja Turtles, or our Ninja Turtles, well, whatever, the animated series, the live action movies, even in the comics, Splinter was, at least the comics I've read, Splinter was always the wise, like Shaolin, like ninja monk sort of person. He always had nuggets of wisdom to dispense. He taught the turtles ninjutsu. He taught them how to fight. He was a very like serious character. Every once in a while, maybe a little bit of comedy, but like he was very much like the kind of like the stoic teacher from like the old kung fu movies, but in this film, they went like full on dad mode with him, as opposed to like sensei Splinter. There's elements of that. I mean, we see him like kind of teaching them a little bit, but this movie loves its fucking montages. I'll just put that out there right now. And we get this montage of like him teaching the turtles when they're growing up, but it's over in about 2 seconds, and we spend more time with Splinter, like, trying to keep them from going to the outside world and like trying to be the world's best dad, and then we do him like, I don't know, sort of being the sensei-ish version of Splinter that I really.
Oh, we lost Brad.
Yeah.
But we'll keep going, and we'll connect on with him here in a second.
Yeah. His thought was like, it wasn't, just wasn't the sensei, enough of the kind of like stoic sensei influence. Like this. Yeah, and we'll talk about that when Brad comes back. But
there's an interesting parallel that sort of happens there too. And if you really look at the Splinter character versus the Superfly character, hey Brad,
you're back.
We were just talking a little bit about Splinter keeping things going, but we'll dive back in with you.
Yeah, you were just kind of, I think you were coming to the conclusion of what you were talking about with Splinter and just said, you know, that it wasn't really enough of the stoic sensei
Right.
vibe from the character. Right.
Right. And I always felt like Stoic Sensei Splinter sort of evened out a lot of the craziness with the turtles. It gave a nice balance. But them going all in on like super dad ridiculous Splinter just threw that off kilter. Didn't work for me very well, but I mean, kids nowadays, this is their Ninja Turtles now. It's not mine. You know, maybe they'll like that more. I don't know, but that's kind of where I was coming from.
He wasn't very zen.
And I think that's my hunch is, you know, and I would say that the Splinter character was one of the weaker ones for me. I think I liked him a little better than you did, but I will say compared to the others, he was a little weaker. But I also can understand what they were going for, and that's one of the things that I've seen as sort of popular in sort of media adaptations nowadays is to really look at how you do your like Orientalism and sort of like, you know, are you exoticizing certain aspects of other cultures? And they're probably we're looking at this saying like, okay, well, Splinter is just this sort of Zen ninja character who has like a kimono and all of these things. Does that fit as much in this character? Well, if not, then let's go a different direction. What I did like about this character was I think there was a really cool parallel between him and Superfly because both of those characters were the older versions of the ooze infested mutants who raised younger ooze mutants, but both of them took them in two different directions, one with empathy and one with rage when they had that pivotal like let's go out and try to see the world moment. They even had those mirror image moments. So I thought that was pretty cool. Like if you're going to go the direction they went, and I don't know if I 100% love the direction they went, but if you're going to go the direction they went, I at least like the way that they went about it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
I know you mentioned in the pre-section April, Ao Edibiri. This has been a year for her. Like I know you mentioned it up front. So in addition to this movie and The Bear, which is it, and Theater Camp, she has a role in Into the Spider-Verse. She has one of the lead roles in Bottoms, which is coming up, which we saw at South by Southwest. She's been in, she was one of the main characters in Clone High, which had its revitalization. And then she just keeps popping up in shows. She had a Black Mirror episode. She's, you know, okay. So if you count each individual one, she has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 2023 credits.
Yikes.
Of which, you know, some of those are 10, 18, 6 episodes, you know, like or feature-length films. She's putting in work and well deserved. I think that she is one of those talents who works both on screen and as a voice actress. Like I think that in both cases she emotes and delivers like whatever emotion she's going well pretty effectively. Yeah.
So any thoughts? I mean, I don't know, any other spoiler thoughts? Don't know where they take this. Like obviously I don't know, I don't even know how successful the movie actually was this weekend. You know, going against like Barbie and Oppenheimer's second and third week or whatever. But assuming that they get another shot, the question is, you know, what direction might they take it? Where will they go with this? So I'm anxious to see.
It's going to be interesting. I mentioned before spoilers that the movie does this weird thing with the majority of its villains. And what I was alluding to there is it makes all of the villains into friends at the end of the movie. In fact, they're all living together down in the sewer. So all these foes, Bebop, Rocksteady, like they're all in previous versions of the Turtles, like they're all antagonists. They're like constantly fighting and
they're always on the other side. Yeah.
Right. And in previous versions, we've always had Shredder as kind of like the big boss who like employs these mutants or is somehow involved with them. And we get that stinger scene at the end of this movie, where we like see the silhouette of Shredder, and I'm just wondering, yeah, exactly, Xander, and I'll put Xander's comment on the screen. Is it going to be like the Magneto split in the X-Men films, where Shredder comes on the scene and he offers them a better deal or convinces them that he'll be better for them, and they switch sides. I don't know, maybe that's going to make it a more complicated thing when they all have to fight each other because they have conflicting feelings, but it feels kind of weird. I don't know.
Could be because we are in spoilers, so we could say that the stinger, right, in this movie did bring Shredder kind of into mention, right? For possibly for the next movie, if I recall. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the idea, is that that organization is going to have that was sort of like in the background of this one, was sort of responsible as a catalyst for some of the things, but really didn't get involved in the main thrust of the story, is now employing Shredder to sort of clean up loose ends. So what does that mean? Is there going to be some sort of like recruitment next time? How are they going to deal with the fact that now the other thing about this is these are turtles who at the end of the movie are donning their normal, like they're getting rid of their like sewer gear and going to high school. So that's very different territory for these characters as well. What's it going to be like for them to have to balance like being ninjas and also like going to prom and stuff like that? So what's cool about it is this is, I don't want to say necessarily new territory, but it's definitely like fertile territory for these characters, in that like it gives us a chance to play in some new sandboxes and see what we get from it. Will it work? Will it not? Just like with any sequel, they've got to stick the landing. But after this one, I'm pretty optimistic about their ability to sort of pull a convincing story out of the elements they're weaving together.
We had a question from Xander, and I don't know what that means, but
so Krang is the alien brain enemy of the Ninja Turtles in the original cartoon series. Was Krang in this movie? I do not remember Krang.
I don't remember it. And if it was, maybe it was one of those Easter egg fleeting moments that I totally went over my head.
Yeah, I don't remember. I may have missed him. The big references that I got were okay. He's seeing sort of like the what is the character's name in this? The leader of that organization.
Spider? No.
As the
yeah. the main the one voiced by Maya Rudolph, the one with the glasses, like Cynthia Outram.
That's supposed to be Krang, really?
Cynthia Outram.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I mean, these are deep cuts. You guys are like turtle.
You know what?
Turtle.
I did not know this. I just Googled some stuff on Turtlepedia, which also I didn't know existed until just now.
Turtlepedia.
Just so you know. But the Outrams are an alien species in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle universe, which is essentially what Krang is, and her name is Cynthia Outram. So Xander nailed it. I never picked up on that. So wow.
I would like to give a quick so that's really great. I mean, that, like I said, that's like so many levels down for me. Like I would never have found that. But see, that's cool, right? So it's a richness of layers, right, for these movies, depending on your sometimes these movies can satisfy all those layers. This one did for me, being at the layer of like very casual fan, but it also seems to like be hit for for much more knowledgeable fans, like Xander and Will, and Will maybe being somewhere in between me and Xander on the fan scale. But one of the things I wanted to mention, one of the things that struck me was Ice Cube voiced the main villain in here, Superfly.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought he did a really good job. It totally reminded me of Levi Stubbs' voice in Little Shop of Horrors, for Audrey too. When he, he had that kind of same inflection, the same attitude, in kind of his voice and the way he was dealing with people, or dealing with other characters. And I really like that. And I would love to, maybe I'll go do some research and find out if he had used that for any kind of inspiration to kind of his voice for Superfly in this movie. But because I thought it definitely struck me as like, oh shit, he sounds and is acting so much like Audrey 2 did in Little Shop of Horrors. So that was really cool, I thought.
I mean, the voice cast down the line is really good. Even so we have Seth Rogen can be much in a lot of roles.
Oh yeah, he can be much more than much.
But he works for Bebop. John Cena worked for Rocksteady. We have Rose Byrne is Leatherhead in this. Paul Rudd was Mondo Gecko. Post Malone was Ray Fillet. Hannibal Buress was Genghis Frog. They didn't always have a ton of lines, but all of those mutants felt very interesting to me and very well defined. Even if it was well defined around one character trait, I could sort of like when someone was getting ready to say something, like I was like, I didn't lose track of any of the mutants in the crowd, I guess is what I'm saying. For that many new characters introduced at the same time, each one I got what they were going for.
Cool.
All right, excellent. Well, any final thoughts before we move on to some plugs?
Pretty much got to the bottom of my ooze barrel.
Very good. Yeah. I could turtle wax on all night, but I think we can call this one.
All right, excellent. All right, well, let's move on to the part of our show where we put things we love on your radar in hopes that maybe you'll discover love for them as well. And we'll kick things off with Jim. Jim, what's your plug this week?
So I'm going to repeat a plug that I plugged probably, a while ago now, maybe 6 months or so ago or longer. This is a plug for a show. It's a TV series that's fairly new called Reservation Dogs. I don't know why, but I feel like a lot of people may be sleeping on this show. It's fantastic. To me, it's one of the better written shows, especially if you're like me and you are kind of a fan of shows that really care and develop their characters. They care about their characters, and they this is, some people might call this a comedy, some people might call it a drama, but I think it walks that line fairly well. I don't think it's trying to be, all one thing, all at once. I think it's got a lot of heart. The performances are great. I think the writing's great. These are, each season is like 8 to 10 episodes that are a half hour or less long. So if you've got Hulu, check this show out. It's now just started its third and last season. So there's not a lot to catch up on here. If you started now, you'd probably be caught up just in time to jump in before the third season is fully released. But it's a show that's produced by and created by two people, Taika Waititi, who we all know, and also Sterling Harjo, which I don't know that well. But man, I really like this show. It's one of the best 2 or 3 shows, new shows on out right now, if you ask me. It's called Reservation Dogs, and it's 2 seasons are fully released on Hulu, and the 3rd season is coming out now.
Jim, you said that season 3 is the last season. Is the show wrapping up?
I believe it's the 3rd and final season. I believe.
Oh,
Unless
wow.
they do a surprise and say, "Oh, surprise, we're going to add a fourth season." I don't know, but I've heard that it's the last season.
Oh, interesting. All right. Well, I got in at just the right time, I guess. I binged
Hmm.
the first 2 seasons of the show over the last couple weeks,
Yeah.
and Jim, I watched some of it with you. It was fun to kind of hear some of your thoughts about those episodes as we were going through, and we just started the 3rd season today, and now I'm really bummed because I was hoping
Hmm.
the show was going to have legs for years to
Yeah.
come, and now I just found out that it's ending, so that's really sad. But it is a really good show. The comedy doesn't really work for me very well at all, but it does really, really great stuff with the drama and the dynamics between all of the characters. I feel like I
Yeah.
know these characters. I feel like these characters are my friends. And anytime a show like is able to accomplish that with me, it's a huge win. So
Yeah.
I'm literally cheering for your plug right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, it's and I forgot to mention what the whole premise of the show is. It's a series about 4 Native American teenagers growing up on a reservation in a reservation village in eastern Oklahoma. And that's pretty much straight from IMDb. But as I said, and as Brad said, you really get to know these characters, which is pretty astounding, given that you're only given a half hour each episode to develop a story and characters that you care about. And I just think it's really well written.
So co-signed. Great plug, babe. Thank you for that. Will, how about you? What's your plug this week?
I keep going back and forth between 2. I'm gonna go with They Clone Tyrone. Calling it at the last moment. They Clone Tyrone is, and the reason I picked this one is the other one I had is like you can rent it on Apple or for a few bucks, but They Clone Tyrone is on Netflix, so it's going to be more accessible if you have one of those accounts. So They Clone Tyrone is this sort of sci-fi drama comedy. It sort of fits between genres. And it stars John Boyega, Teyonah Parris, who we've seen pretty recently in the Monica Rambeau role in the Marvel Universe, and then Jamie Foxx, the 3 leads in this. And John Boyega plays a drug dealer. Teyonah Parris plays a prostitute about to leave town, and Jamie Foxx plays a kind of a smooth as silk pimp. And the 3 of them, after a weird interaction, find out that something kind of weird is happening in their city. Something lurks right beneath the surface that might be kind of changing the way that the people of the town are interacting with one another, and it goes down some pretty wild sci-fi territory very quick. Definitely in the satire style. So think in some ways something like Sorry to Bother You, just in terms of like what it's looking to tell. It's set with like sort of like a film grain on it, so it actually feels a little bit like an older like exploitation style comedy or action film. But you also have some really neat, and I don't want to spoil them, but some really neat surprise cameo performances and a pretty buck wild third act. I didn't know exactly where this movie was going, and I think that's a fun feeling when you explore something that doesn't really like match a genre exactly and doesn't go where you want to go. It feels new. It's like, this is why I watch movies, is to find these new experiences. So I strongly recommend. It's They Cloned Tyrone. It's on Netflix, and yeah, it's just a lot of fun. It came out the same weekend as Barbie and Oppenheimer, so a lot of people were watching it and talking about it, but nothing really got any oxygen like the week of Barbenheimer, except for Barbenheimer, and that's okay. But They Clone Tyrone is also the goods and shouldn't be overlooked just because of its release schedule.
Very cool, Will. I have seen some rumblings about that movie, and I think it's gonna take a spot on my list because I'm starting to run out of stuff to watch.
There you go. I'd be interested in hearing what you think.
Cool.
Mhm.
Cool.
All right. Excellent. For me this week, and Will, thank you so much for your plug. A while back, we went to South by Southwest Film and got to see a little indie movie that nobody had ever heard of, starring actors you'd never heard of, called Dungeons and Dragons. Just kidding. Everybody heard about that movie. And while not everybody saw it, you should have. But while not everybody saw it, it was a big hit for a lot of folks, especially those of us who really love D&D. So seeing that movie a couple of times, because we saw it again when it came out on wide release, really just like put the D&D bug in me. I was already part of one D&D group. I've since gotten involved with 2 other groups. Jim's always having to surf our calendar and figure out when the fuck I don't have D&D, figure out when we can see movies.
But I don't mind at all.
Well, I appreciate that. I think I've pretty much just dropped down to 2 groups now. More on that later, babe. But there are times when I really want to D&D it up, but like my D&D night is every 2 weeks for the different groups. And anyway, this is a long-winded way of introducing a game called Baldur's Gate 3, which just came out at the end of last week. I've had a chance to play about 3 hours of it so far, so I'm not super deep in, but I actually played the early access for it a couple of years ago when it came out, and just completely fell in love with it. You could only play to like level 5 when it originally came out in early access. So I set it aside, forgot about it for a couple years, and then I was like, oh shit, this is coming out. Anyway, I have just been having a fucking blast creating my character complete with a dick. Your characters can have genitals and you can design them in various ways. I know, it's crazy.
Jim's in.
There are sex scenes in this game, and apparently having genitals is pivotal to those scenes. But it's just been really neat to like play my own D&D movie. Basically, the artwork is phenomenal. The cutscenes and voice acting are just completely fucking top notch. I'm getting to see like all my favorite wizard spells and action, and control of rogue and a druid, and just my D&D adventurer fantasy heart is just leaping out of its chest. A lot of friends have been getting into it too. I have a bunch of friends on the Discord, and we've all been sharing nudie pics of our characters with their dicks, and comparing like how hairy they are, and but like also talking about like what makes a good build. But I mean, bears are going to be bears, right? Like 99% of bears I've seen playing this game are making hairy dwarfs. So big bearded hairy dwarfs. Can't say I'm surprised. But it's a great game. It's out on PC right now, but it is coming to PlayStation this September. I think it's September 6th. So definitely, if you can play on PC, this is one that I recommend, especially if you really love the D&D movie like I did. I think you get a lot out of this one. And then when it comes available on console, I've played it with a controller on my computer, a PlayStation controller, just to see what it's like. And it's probably one of the best controller interfaces for a game I've ever played. So you don't have to worry about having 1,000 buttons that you have to click on your keyboard. And if you're like me, you fucking fat finger the keys and hit the wrong things all the time. It's so nice and simple on a controller. I love it. Anyway, Baldur's Gate 3 out now. Check it out.
Yeah, I'm really excited to play it. I just got Final Fantasy 16 for my birthday, and so I've decided like I need to focus on it, because otherwise I will pour all my time into Baldur's Gate. But I'm like you, Brad. I've got 2 D&D groups. I play every Sunday night and every Monday night, and I've got players from my groups who are currently, they have more time to play during the week than I do, which I love that for them. Who are like 40, 50 hours in already. And they've like been saying in our group chats, like in between games, like, this is the best video game I've ever played, which is great hearing that from my D&D group, which, and to put a bow on that part, these are people who are both I have my bear D&D group and my like just normal mix. I don't know the normal, but like it's, just cross section of gamers, Gen Pop, my Gen Pop group, and both groups have people in it and playing it that are just absolutely like gaga for it. So
Mm.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It'll probably be like my hunch is I'm gonna work on Final Fantasy between now and Fantastic Fest, and then give myself basically the last quarter of the year just to be in Baldur's Gate world. I'm excited for it.
Cool. Well, I hope
Awesome.
you enjoy it. Well,
Well, we've covered everything tonight in plugs. We've covered movies, TV series, and games, all in one.
wow.
All in one butt plug.
Oh, you should.
One big butt plug.
I also strongly recommend picking up the Hellfire Gala comic from a couple of weeks ago. A lot of fun things happening in the X-Men universe there. We've covered more media. We've covered comics and video games and movies and televisions. I don't know what else there is to cover, but anyone got a music recommendation? What do we got?
I don't really.
I know. Find a little podcast called the Movie Bears Podcast on Spotify. I hear they're really good.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good recommendation.
Or on your favorite podcast app.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, I don't really have like any skin in the game there. We're just kind of doing this off the dome. But like, I don't know if you were to go and like leave like a review and share it with some of your friends. I bet you that they'd appreciate that.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not interested either way, but like it could be a thing. Xander says, haha, y'all are adorable.
As all those royalty and monetization checks roll in, we're doing
Yeah. Yeah, right. 500 shows in, and we've spent more money making the show than we'll ever recoup. But that's okay. It's a labor of love. We love doing it.
It is
for us and for all of you. Quickly coming up on episode 500 of the show. We're on 482. I don't know that we're going to make 500 by December in concert with our anniversary. Probably not so much, but who knows? Maybe early 2024. We'll see. Possibly.
Who knows?
To look forward to in the new year.
Indeed. Well, thanks so much for hanging out with us, everybody. It was great fun talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, and of course sharing our plugs with you. Thanks to Steve and Dr. Matt and Xander and everybody else that was with us in the live chat. Jesse, I saw a few comments from. We didn't get to read everything, but always great to have y'all as part of the discussion. Thanks so much for jumping in. And if you're listening through the magic of digital tape delay on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc., you can still be part of the conversation. Find us on Twitter at MB Podcast. Sorry, find us on X at MB Podcast or on Facebook. Just look for Movie Bears Podcast. We'll be happy to chat with you. Last thing, and then we are fucking out of here. If people want to chat between now and next week's review of the Meg 2, The Trench, where can folks interact online? Jim, go.
I am on Letterboxd. You can follow my ratings for every single movie that I've seen, going pretty far back, but not, I mean, this year for sure, and going forward into the foreseeable future. So check it out. Check us all out on Letterboxd. But you can also find me on Facebook under my name, Jim Pugliafico. And yes, I'm on X. That used to be Twitter. But who knows for how long, really.
You're on X?
Can we clip that? Like, clip that part where it's just like, yeah, I'm on X.
I'm on X. Oh, by the way, my handle there on Letterboxd and on X is at JJP Out West. JJP Out West.
All right. Thanks so much, babe. Well, where can people find and interact with you?
Don't look for me on, I'm just going to dead name it, Twitter, because I'm really slowing down on Twitter. But I'm on Instagram. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on Letterboxd under the Movie Bear as the name. I've started to just line up so I don't have so many different handles. But my name on Facebook is my actual name, which is William Lindis. So that's how you can find me there. So just look for me. Oh, TikTok. I'm also the Movie Bear there. I don't know. Just find me on socials. Let's just chat. Let's talk. Let's connect. Whatever. It's fun.
All right. Thanks, Will. And folks, you can find me on Facebook. Just look for Brad Harris. I'm the one that likely has chub, chaser, bear, dolphin, wolf, whatever the fuck friends in common with you. Please just send a message first so I know you're a real person. You can also find me on Letterboxd at iBradPro. I've also been rating every movie I've seen this year. We're coming up on September, guys. It's about to be fall. That will mean I've reviewed every movie I've seen winter, spring, and summer. If I can make it through the fall, I'll have completed 1 year of Letterboxd. That will be quite the accomplishment.
You can do it.
I think I can do it. I think I can do it. Folks, thanks so much for tuning in this week. We will see you all next time for the Meg 2, The Trench. Have a good week, everybody. We'll see you later. Goodbye.
Bye, dudes.
See you later.
Cow.